That was wonderful, Helen. Just as a thank you for that.
I'm going to keep my boots off. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to thank everyone for contributing tonight and for like joining and sharing, because I think it's just been such an amazing journey, this project, all the different people that I've met. There's so many people, and I think I wanted to particularly mention, maybe I should move. Should I move so people can see me? Just conscious that people on YouTube. Yeah, I just wanted to mention Poppy Nash, who wasn't mentioned in the list of sort of conversations.
Sorry, that was me.
Feedback there. Yeah, I just wanted to mention Poppy Nash, who was really instrumental in putting together the blanket. And I feel like the sort of resonances with Rise's work, the whole sort of network of people, I feel like this is something really important to just mention how many people are involved in the blanket, how many people I met on the way, but also to mention Kaya's work, who set up this course. I don't know if you want to talk about it, actually, the designing on Crip Time. Yeah, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, so in 2022, was it that we did that? Yeah. Myself and my friend Mikel, who runs a program called Designers Thinking, put together this 8-week reading and writing course, thinking through Crip Time and what kind of Crip Time means, particularly in relation to a design practice and the made world and all of these things. And Helen was one of our brilliant participants. And through that program, all of the participants developed some kind of text-based outcome that we then published as a publication, which is in the corner over there. If you want to have a look, it's called On Crip Time. Yeah, so that was that.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to mention that was a real sort of turning point, because I'd been I'd had this situation, I had this condition, and there was a lot of grief in there, a lot of like loss, and a lot of anger, frustration. But then I think what was really great about the course was that it gave me this like new direction, the kind of where that energy could go, and meeting other people who were making work, met other artists who were using that experience to make work, and that people have been doing that. Like there's so many amazing artists who have been doing that for many years. And I think that idea of growing this supportive network is something that's just really come out of this project. And I think that way that all these different intersecting practices can support each other. But yeah, so I feel like that's something I wanted to just mention there. I don't know if that's anything anyone else wants to talk about, or James?
I think that's a very Crip Time thing as well, because I really got this from Rise's film earlier, and it was sort of, we often think about Crip Time in a very individualistic sense, about sort of what our own needs are, and how we can sort of better understand the way we navigate the world. But there's such a sort of communal element to it too, and listening to one another and listening to what all of our needs are and trying to make accommodations for them. And I feel like what you just said there sort of really points to that as well. So it's more of a comment.
I also wanted to talk to you, Abby, about something we discussed, about this question of like a sort of absurd or ridicularity, both of, really about the sort of fictions that we live in, or that sort of that having experiences, health histories, or the experiences of disability really highlight. I suppose that's something I wanted to talk about. But I think there's also this question of the absurdity of this blanket that I was carrying up and down the country to meet other artists, but also how it got kind of, how it was huge, how it took up lots of space. And we had a lot of discussion about this pillow, takes the word of Liz Crow, which are these amazing words about this sort of paradox about how articulating the inability to do something is a kind of paradox, because then you're actually doing it. So I feel like all these, I don't know if there's something in there about this kind of absurdity and the kind of ridicularity of these everyday structures that we encounter, and the kind of slugs in there.
I guess we're adding slugs in, that's a curveball, but I think it's definitely there's like just the absurd performances we have to go through in order to like appear. I just think there's like a really interesting like paradox between what you're asked to do to perform for the DWP in terms of our sense of well-being, and it's such absurd questions, and then the other absurdity of what we do to try and get out of bed or move in the mornings, and the fact that there still isn't room on a pit form to even understand those things. It's like absolute performance, and when you do take up space in a public place, like I'm a mobility scooter user, you're made to feel like such an inconvenience, and there's so little. We're asking for such a little amount of space. There's one space for one very specific type of mobility aid on a bus in London, for instance, but then something like this blanket, I don't know, I keep thinking about this experience I had at the South Bank Centre where I put my feet up on, they had these like these blocks, and they were kind of asking us they were these, I don't know how to describe them, like square blocks, and I sat on one and then put my feet up, and immediately a guard came and told me off and was like, you can't do that here, you can't do that here. And just the idea that we're asking for absolute unreasonable things when what we're being asked to perform some of those in order to do normal functions and be a productive member of late stage capitalism is such a lot for a body to have to go through sometimes. I guess like if we're going to bring slugs into it, because I always like to, I've been thinking a lot about slugs in that, and the absurdity of how people treat them as a being that we share an earth with. I get about it's slug season at the moment, so they're breeding quite heavily, and they're out when it's wet there, it's misty. And for the last few years during slug season, I get like about 15 texts a month from people saying, oh my god, how disgusting, I trod on a slug in my kitchen. Awful, which is like a very disgusting experience, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't feel nice. But then what often happens, not necessarily in my friendship group, but I've had conversations with people in public about what they then do to the slugs, and it's so violent. Or they talk about, I like most beings, but I can't like slugs because they eat my plants, they destroy my lettuces. And it's this idea that like this ownership of space, that like how dare this disgusting creature invade my territory and invade my land and my sanctity, and I feel like that's sometimes how chronically ill and disabled people are treated, in terms of like how if you would just be a little bit better, I wouldn't mind you, but since you're eating all my lettuce, I have to hate you. That's how it feels sometimes. That if we're not contributing, and we're not looking right, or we're like maybe viscous in the wrong way, sweaty in the wrong way, gross in the wrong way, if we're perceived as this disgusting insult to space, so to lie down with a blanket in public feels like a very sluggy act, to be honest. I don't know, maybe that was a lot of different threads all at once, sorry.
I feel honoured to be given that label of a sluggy act. I really like that. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say something there. I think Anna Singh, and I won't get this right, but talks about the body, or the fact that you know, as human beings, we can't even we don't even have control of our bodies. And I feel like that connection to slugs has this kind of obviously like a wider ecological factor to it. And I feel like, that the body kind of takes over, or the body kind of surprises even yourself. And I feel like that's something also that I kind of take away, I guess, from that conversation, that connection to this idea, like non-humans, or, this idea that there are wider connections as well as these networks that we were talking about.
Yeah, sorry, someone else wants to say, I'm going to say the thing, and then, but one thing was just the conclusion I came to while I was working on slugs was the idea. In the bit I read, I talk about this vision where slugs are deified, but towards the end of the book, I realized that's not what I want at all. What I want is for slugs to be morally neutral, neither good nor bad, neither worshipped or hated, and to live in a biodiversity where we don't have to do population control because the land is taking care of itself in the appropriate manner. And that's what I want for us as humans too. Like, I look at my cats in my living room and they lie around all day and aren't asked to perform structures. They aren't asked to contribute to like a form of capitalism, except when I put them in films for me, but mainly they don't tend to. They got paid very well as well. Let's talk about union rates, but like it's really interesting to watch a creature just be, and to think, God, that's what I need. I think that I want slugs to appear morally neutral, because I think humans and what we do with our bodies and our time, I want that to be morally neutral too. I don't want disability pride, actually. I don't want loud celebrations and flags. I don't want Transport for London to put up posters about how amazing it is because one of their conductors is a wheelchair user. I actually just want to be able to get on and off each train without having to beg for permission, and I want to be able to not have to get on a train if I can't manage to go to work that day. Do you know what I mean? I just don't want what they're offering. So moral neutrality is a Crip virtue, I think. Sorry, I realized someone else was about to speak, so I'll stop ranting now.
No, I think you might have answered that question.
Sorry. Yeah. It's hard when I'm not there, and also I talk a lot and have no filter.
I didn't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to. Is there anything in the YouTube chat coming?
Oh yeah, let me check. Any questions or comments? Matt Alton says, I have a fidget toy squishy snail, so I've been combining that with my water. I think this is earlier. Slimy. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. I'm glad that was a slimy experience for you. I can't see any other comments at the moment, but let me. I might be doing it wrong because I'm really bad at the internet. But so far, please feel free to ask a question or make a comment.
Oh, okay.
So much of our culture suppresses pain, whether sort of actively or it demands us to suppress pain in many ways. So I've always wondered, by detailing energy and capacity in the way that you did, how did it feel emotionally? Because I'm wandering around, how does it feel to sort of go over yourself in this way, so to speak?
Yeah, no, go over myself. It feels, I remember talking about the show with Sunshine, and I felt like I didn't want it to be all about me, actually. It felt very luxurious and very, dare I say, kind of selfish, actually, to like give it that attention. So I think it's something, and I feel like, there's something in there, and I don't know I think it is to do with like processing kind of shame, processing like actually telling people about things, because we don't talk about things, we don't talk about those We don't talk about pain. We don't talk about issues. We're doing fine, you know. So I feel like, yeah, it's for me it was completely counter to my previous work, which was very much about working with other people in public space, making work that facilitated spaces where other people would take part, or other species, you know, or beings, whether they might be ducks or, you know, sort of different frameworks for other people to work within. So when it came to the point where I couldn't do that anymore, and I had to turn it back, and the only space I could work with was the space of my everyday. Yeah, it was like a sort of, yeah, that was the only thing I could really do. So for me, it's like a sort of practical reason. But then it was really through Kaya's course that I was sort of given this kind of permission in a way to say, let's turn it back and think about what I'm doing now and how that could be work, and what is the work around making work actually. So yeah, and all those kinds of the hidden labor that goes into dealing with those sort of everyday things. And I feel like when we had the discussion about this, an earlier version of this the flowchart behind me, it was some of the people in the group said, oh, you know, you've made it so that able-bodied people can understand how it is to live a disabled life. So I really was so excited about that, actually, that there was this like translation of something, one experience, perhaps between this kind of idea of able and disabled. So I feel like that moving between, or things that can speak in between. Yeah.
But also in a way, it sort of teaches us how we're living under productivity as well, and sort of the pain and difficulty associated with having to fit yourself into that logic. So it sort of has, it has quite like a few wings to it almost. I also think we're going to have to do an Arts Council like roundup of like all the work which is done, and I'd love for them to see this as like the amount of labour involved in putting together an Arts Council application as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to thank Sunshine, who's like kept faith in this project from January 2022. And what I wanted to do but didn't have time to do was like make a kind of diagram or a map of all the people that have been involved in this project and have supported it and, you know, kept it going. So I think there is that idea of all the kind of networks of people and, yeah, the time and the kinds of, like we talked about, drops off in energy and then these kinds of peaks again, and just even applying for funding and all of that stuff, which takes a lot. You can't sit at a computer.
I just listening to you kind of talk about this again, Helen, just sort of brings me back into the space in the world of making sort of co-producing this project with you and kind of thinking about all that. And it's just, I've been sort of immersed in your logic of pain and this clarity for so long that it's, you know, when you mentioned earlier, for instance, someone came in and made disability sort of understandable and readable for them, it's a reminder that how you've sort of laid this out for myself, who, you know, I'm able-bodied and generally do not consider myself having any disabilities, but then also seeing the work by Kaya, for instance, in the very beginning, where there is that scrambling almost of all of this sort of like clarity, you know, like it just reminded me that that's actually probably affectively or like in your body how it's more like, perhaps, and that sort of trying to understand what was going on with the words and with the sounds and SpongeBob and then also thinking in the back of my mind, oh yeah, there's like a certain physical logic in the world of cartoons as well, how people like bounce off of things and like come back, you know, all of that sort of like weird, like it's just I guess what I'm trying to say is just that scrambling, you know, that not making sense of it all, and that probably is truer to the form of feeling how, you know, your body moves in the world. So I guess that contrast today is a reminder for myself that this is quite unusual, maybe, or the way you've laid it out is really just like such a long process of figuring out your body and how to articulate that. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, thank you as well, by the way, because it's you know, the last 2 or 3 years I've learned so much about like how to slow down myself as well. Like it's not something that comes easily for me, and to not be too quick and everything, hyper productive. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, are there any other comments or even feelings or anything about tonight? Please do feel free to pick this mic up. I'm just going to leave this here, so there's no pressure to articulate anything straight away.
We're coming up to the end. I also want to say thanks to Terry, who's also a key person. He's not been mentioned yet. He's been like supporting me throughout the project and coming on all those journeys with me. So yeah, thank you.